Orders of operation are the steps needed for you to solve any expression or equation. In here, there are 4 steps that we need to recognize, and the first step is called using the bracket or parentheses whose symbol is expressed as this curve here that is open and close, or sometimes it can be shown as this particular format, or sometimes you can represent it as, of course, absolute value. So that is something to keep in mind when it comes to the symbols for the first step in terms of solving questions, which means anything inside the parentheses should be done first before you or focused on first before you move on to the second step. And the second step here focuses on an exponent, focuses on anything that has to do with the power of a specific number, or we can say the root of a number. So any form of these two truly represents exponents. The third step is whichever one comes first, either for division, which can either be shown as the division sign or with the bar or with the slash right over here. And the next is multiplication, which can either be shown as the x, or we can have a dot between two numbers, or you can have parentheses that are right beside each other. Therefore, whichever operation comes first, reading from left to right, we solve first and then move on to the other one for step 3. And the same thing is applicable for step 4, where we're solving from left to right, whichever comes first, either addition, whose operation is shown symbolically as the plus sign, and the second is subtraction, whose symbol is expressed as the minus sign. We need to recognize that whichever one comes first, we solve from left to right. Now we have all the 4 steps that are shown here, which are the bracket, exponent, division, multiplication, addition, subtraction. The highlighted first letters for each step is also known as this acronym, which is called BERDMATHS. And so these are the things to keep in mind as we are going to apply it to different questions, which are as follows. First example here shows you that 20 divided by parentheses 2 plus 8 all squared, and what this means here is that this can be rewritten as 20 all over 2 plus 8 and in here all squared. Now in terms of solving these, what we have to recognize is that we see brackets first, which means that once we focus now on bracket, inside the bracket we have addition, and so we are going to add 2 to 8, which means we have 20 divided by inside here to be equal to 10 all squared. And now the next step here is, since we are done with solving inside the bracket, the next step here is exponent, which is what we see as the power 2. Therefore, exponent, which means focusing on the 2, results in this applied to only this number that is in the bracket, which means the 2, which is a power, is not applied to the 20. Therefore, 10 to the power of 2 is the same thing as saying 20 divided by 10 times 10, which gives us 100. Therefore, 20 divided by 100 is the same thing as saying 20 over 100, which means 1 over 5. So this is how we're able to solve our A question. Now, how is A different from our B? B here states that we are going to divide our 20 by 2, and then we add 8 squared to this. Now, what we are doing now is, by orders of operation, we notice that we are going to be doing the exponent first. And so once we perform our exponent, which in this case the 2 is going to be applied to only the 8, not to the 2 and not to the 20. That means 8 to the power of 2 is equal to what? 20 divided by 2 plus 8 times 8 gives us 64. And then the next step here is, once we're done with this, is we notice division as the next step. And so by division, we're going to divide 20 by 2, and this here gives us 10 plus 64. And then finally we're going to perform our addition, which gives us this to be 74. And finally here for our C question is where we have 8 times 2 divided by 3. What we notice here is that since we have the third step, which is going to be whichever one comes first, going from left to right, we recognize that multiplication here comes first, going from left to right. Therefore, multiplication is going to be performed, which is going to be 8 times 2, which gives us 16. And this here is going to be divided by 3. And so 16 divided by 3 is the same thing, writing it in fraction form to be 16 over 3. And that is our answer. Now, the final part here is going to be looking at when we introduce something quite strange, but we need to apply it. And so this is how it looks like, and we're going to perform, of course, using orders of operation to determine what the final answer is. And what we see first is that we notice parentheses at the denominator of both fractions. Therefore, our bracket is going to be tackled first, which means that in here we have 2 minus 4, which is, in this case, our numerator is negative 12 over 2 minus 4, which gives us negative 2. Don't forget your parentheses are squared, plus over, we have 2 inside this parentheses, which is 2 minus 3, which gives us negative 1. And this leads us to the next step, which is we're going to focus now on exponents, where we notice our power of 2, which is a denominator of our first fraction. Therefore, by focusing on this part here, this results in negative 12 over negative 2 times negative 2. That gives us negative times negative, positive 2 times 2, 4, and then plus we have our 5 minus 1 over, removing the parentheses here means that we are going to multiply our 2 by our negative 1. So therefore, positive 2 times negative 1, that gives us positive times negative, negative 2 times 1, 2. And now we have this shown over here. Our next step is there is something above here, which is subtraction, which looks exactly when you write it to be as our parentheses here, which is 5 minus 1. So by solving that other fraction, we have 5 minus 1, which gives us 4 over negative 2. Our next step here is going to be focusing on division of both this fraction and this fraction. Therefore, negative 12 divided by positive 4, that means we have negative divided by positive, which gives us negative, and 12 divided by 4 gives us 3. Therefore, we have negative 3. Don't forget your plus sign. And at the other side here, we have our positive 4 divided by negative 2. Therefore, positive divided by negative gives us a negative value, and our 4 divided by 2 gives us 2. Therefore, once we have this, our final step here is to perform multiplication, where we have our positive and negative 2 This is the same thing as saying positive 1 times negative 2, which means that our next step will be negative 3. Positive times negative gives us negative. 1 times 2 gives us 2. And our final step here is going to be the subtraction, where we're going to have negative 3 minus 2, which gives us negative 5.